Well, hello everybody, and thank you for joining us today in the live with Dr. McDougall, the weekly webinars that Dr. McDougall does every Thursday. And today we have a special guest, Mary McDougall, his wife and the co-founder of the McDougall program. And we're very excited to hear them talk about eating out at people's homes in this time of year, eating out at restaurants. And we have some questions for them, but I will pass it on to Dr. McDougall and Mary McDougall to say a few words of introduction. Hello, thank you.
Hi.
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 Well, eating out. There was a time in life when I could say we were experts at eating out. And if you go back through my videos, there's a section on our website of my videos, and so you see some of the TV videos that I did, they'll say, well, you know, Dr. McDougall's looking a little fatter. As soon as he does now. Hey, believe me, that didn't come out of thin air. That came from eating out and traveling.
I was wondering, yes.
It was a period of time of maybe 3 to 5 years. It was a time when Mary and I owned 2 airplanes and flew 2 airplanes. And both of us are pilots. Very competent pilots, by the way. So we're still here. And because of all that interest in flying that Mary had and the traveling that I did and flying that I did, we, for a period of time, didn't eat home much. And we ate at our favorite vegetarian Thai restaurant, Chinese restaurant. And
it's hard to be perfect at a restaurant, no matter how much you ask them to do the food the right way. It's really hard to get them to do the food the way you want it to be.
So the answer, and we can end the interview, is don't eat out. Well, you know, we resort now to just a few standards when we eat out. They'd be a good Mexican restaurant, if you can find one that has whole beans.
Well, but you have to be careful, because even if you ask if they have whole beans, you have to ask, how did they cook their beans? Because sometimes they put pork in their whole beans.
Oh yeah, that's not good.
So you have to be careful. You know, did you cook them with oil? Did you cook them with pork, or are they just plain beans? The way that you would do it at home. So.
And I would tell everybody, we used to tell everybody that you can go to any Mexican restaurant and get whole beans, until we went to Houston. Yes,
until we went to Houston. But I think we weren't telling the truth.
What?
Because I think there are too many restaurants that say they have whole beans, and if you don't ask them any further questions, then you get tricked.
Well, our son, just kind of as a side topic, our son, daughter-in-law, and 2 grandsons just got back from Houston. They stayed there for at least two years. Yeah. And we'd go down to where they live and try and eat out. And I'd say, you know, Pat, let's go to a taqueria where they have whole beans. He'd look at me and he'd say, Dad, there are no whole beans in Houston. I said, come on, you got to be kidding. There's got to be some places that have whole beans in Houston. Well, I went up up and down that one road that must have had 20 Mexican restaurants on it. And I walked in and I asked them if they had whole beans without pork. And I got not a single positive answer. There was a chain restaurant downtown here.
Freebirds.
Freebirds. Yeah, that Freebirds, which is a chain, good place to eat.
But now Chipotle doesn't cook their whole beans with pork anymore. So.
Okay.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, Chipotle used to have their whole pinto beans, and they would cook them with pork.
Not so good. And La Salsa is another chain I think you can count on.
Yeah.
So. Yeah,
and
there's
Baja Fresh.
Baja Fresh, yeah, there's another one you can count on. So you know, if you try one of those chains, you'll be okay. If you find a little taqueria and they're willing to answer the basic questions, you have whole beans, not cooked in animal foods, then that's one of our mainstays. We love Mexican food, and if you ask for rice, unfortunately the rice is often cooked in chicken broth, so you need to ask that. The guacamole, what do they stick in the guacamole to make it bad?
Well, they use sour cream or mayonnaise to make it stretch farther and be more creamy. So you have to ask about that too.
Maybe plain avocado.
Yeah.
And there are some places, there's a place in San Francisco that actually used to be located just a mile from our food factory, Dr. McDougall's Right Foods, which is still a product that you guys buy all over the country in the grocery stores. It's in about 6,000 stores. But one of my favorite things to do was to go to this Mexican restaurant near the factory, and we'd order tortillas. The lady would make them homemade. They'd come out almost a 1/4 inch thick and really fresh. And just for the tortilla and the whole beans that they served there, I mean, I'd go way out of my way to go to that restaurant. It was called La Perla.
Yeah.
La Perla, which means the pearl.
Which is probably not even there anymore.
I don't know. They look like a really solid restaurant, pretty busy. So, be careful when you go out. I think what would be your second favorite category of eating out foods?
Well, so I like Thai food, but
Yes.
but it's really, really hard to get Thai food without oil. And so we very rarely go out for Thai food anymore.
Yeah, and if you do go for Thai or Chinese or any other type of Vietnamese, Asian type food, you can ask them what they have that's cooked without oil, and you're going to end up in most cases with white rice, which I considered a long time to not be a deal breaker. In other words, if you're out traveling, you're out at a restaurant, and you have a choice between fried pork and white rice, go for the white rice. So we were really finding that much trouble. Maybe that's why we gained so much weight when we were flying. So we liked that one Vietnamese restaurant, and it took me there almost every evening.
And but we very rarely eat out anymore. And of course, in Santa Rosa, we're lucky because there are a lot of restaurants that cook the way that we recommend. And so it's a little bit easier for us than for most people around the country.
Yeah, we had, at one time we had 100 restaurants north of the Bay, north of the Golden Gate Bridge. 100 restaurants that actually served items that had the McDougall name on them. And they would get a certificate from us that said that they understood the rules for the McDougall food. Now I'd say it's probably down to about 50 restaurants north of the Golden Gate Bridge. And right in Santa Rosa, we have our clinic, which is run at the Flamingo Resort, which has our items there every day. And then we have Gary Chu's Chinese restaurant, and we have many Mexican restaurants that are really, really clean.
And something that I always recommend to people when they come through the program is that they purchase an app called Happy Cow. Happy Cow tells you vegetarian-friendly restaurants in your city, and at least when you walk in there and you start talking to them, they'll work with you and they'll help you. Whereas if you just walk into any restaurant that a taxi cab driver recommends, you don't know what you're going to get. But at least with Happy Cow, I feel like I can check ahead and see if they have something that I think I can maybe eat or work with.
But don't let your guard down when you go to a vegetarian or vegan restaurant. There's some of the more dangerous places in the world to eat.
Well, yeah, but Happy Cow doesn't only have vegetarian or vegetarian.
They have other
restaurants too. They're just vegetarian friendly, and so they work with you. That's their main.
So taking
Unfortunately, you're breaking up, Gustavo. So we heard almost none of that.
Okay, then keep going.
Okay, well, we'll see if your connection gets in. We also have to think about some more traditional restaurants, and just to give people guidance, because they're going to get hungry, and they're going to say, well, I'm going to eat nothing and starve, which I can't do, or I'm going to make the best choice I can. So maybe we could go through a few of those. You can always go to a pizza parlor and order a vegan pizza. It's going to be almost always white crust, but you tell them no cheese, just absolutely no cheese. And it's amazing how good a vegan pizza can be and how close it comes to good eating. It's certainly not perfect, but we were just in a situation with Mary's niece just out here visiting us, and she's, of course, a very social person. unmarried, goes out with a lot of friends, and they go to different restaurants. Well, the first nice thing, I hadn't seen Sarah for about 6 months.
Yeah.
And she probably lost 30 pounds. She was on a Hawaii trip with us last January. And they just came out last week, so that's longer than 6 months. But she probably lost 30 pounds, and all of the oil and the acne that she had, which she was suffering terribly from. It wasn't the first time she heard our message in January on the Hawaii trip. But somehow or another, she just started listening. And we got to the subject of her and her friends and eating out. And one of the first things I remember her saying was, well, pizza parlors are my easiest place to eat out, because at least I don't have to eat all the grease, which results in all the body fat and all the greasy skin and all the pimples. And she says, admittedly, cheese-free pizza is really good. There are other places, salad bars, that have salad bars you can go to and order baked potatoes.
Well, a lot of people say that their favorite places to eat are steakhouses, because you can always get a baked potato and steamed vegetables.
And for some people, a lot of our patients do this. Mary and I don't, but a lot of our patients do it because, plain and simple, they're more strict than we are, and sometimes their health requires they be more strict than we are. And when they eat out, they take an igloo cooler and fill it up with leftovers from the night before. And you can also take Dr. McDougall's Right Foods products along to a place you go, and you can order a baked potato or maybe some fairly clean rice and noodles, and take the soup out. You have to get some hot water to cook it up. But if you're just driving along in your car, you can have a thermos along with it too.
You could.
I'm not here to sell Dr. McDougall Right Foods products. They are just really convenient, and they're not Dr. McDougall's perfect foods. They're Dr. McDougall's Right Foods. So you'll find a little high in salt, but no animals, no oil, and some refined products, for some refined ingredients.
How important, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead. No, just talk slowly.
Okay, how important is it to you to eat organic?
Oh, okay. Well, organic for us in our home, it's very important. When we shop, Mary takes great effort to buy organic. These pesticides are real. These persistent organic pollutants are real. These chemicals get in the food are real. The arsenic that gets in the food is real. I don't know if you can stop that with organic, but I mean, these things are real. You want to do the best you can as avoiding them. And so Mary shops in groceries that cater to organic products, brag about organic products, and that's what we buy in every case that we can. We don't emphasize eating organic to our large body of followers unless they ask. And then we tell them, these pollutants that will cause brain damage, Parkinson's disease, initiate and promote cancer. These chemicals will cause premature sexual maturity, all kinds of things. So we don't go into too much at the program. And the reason is we're overwhelming them with such a big change of getting rid of the animal foods and the oils. And now if we throw on top of that only unrefined products, only organic, and it gets a little bit overwhelming. We're kind of trying to go for the big bang for the buck. Now, it doesn't mean that we skirt away from the issue, just as you asked it. Clearly, organic is worth your trouble. But people say, well, now that's an extra expense, an extra thing I have to do. You said this was going to be cheaper and easier. Now I got to go, organic may be your next step.
Right. And would you share with everybody, what would you take, for example, to somebody's home when they invite you and you can take a dish? What are some of the things that Mary would make to take to somebody's home?
Before she answers that, I'm going to say I would take a full stomach. I would fill up before I do anything that I think I'm going to have problems with.
We usually eat
Pre-eat.
before we go if we know there's not going to be healthy foods there. If I'm going to take a dish, I usually make some kind of a salad, but a grain and vegetable salad. Like I have a really favorite quinoa market salad that I really like, that people seem to like. I have a rice rice salad that's in the Quick and Easy cookbook, and I can't remember the name of it. Confetti rice salad. And I take those, and it usually ends up that those things get eaten first because people like them. I never take green salads. I take, hearty. I have a favorite Israeli couscous salad that I like to take. So almost every time we go somewhere, we eat first, and then I take something along that I know we can eat when we're there.
And I have to add, we don't get invited out very often. It goes with the name McDougall. I'm not having them over for dinner. Forget it. But on occasion.
Sometimes, at some point, eating out becomes more of a torture than a pleasure.
Yeah.
Except for us and a few favorite Mexican restaurants that we found. We do enjoy going out and having a burrito bowl. Mary always has that.
I never order the tortillas.
No, I do. I'm bad.
He's bad. But I figure he's thin enough that, once a month. But otherwise, I always order my burrito in a bowl. I never get the tortillas because I know flour tortillas always have fat in them. Corn tortillas usually do not. So if you're going to order tortillas, go for the corn instead of the flour.
And that's a good trick to pass on to you that we use when we go to Mexican restaurants. They bring a bowl of salsa, which it doesn't have oil in it. It's hot, very flavorful. And then along with that, they bring you a basket of greasy chips that will make you nauseated. They're disgusting. And so what do? Because you want to eat something with everybody else, and the salsa looks really good. You want to try that. Well, as soon as you enter the Mexican restaurant, you just tell them to bring you a plate of fresh corn tortillas, steamed corn tortillas. And then you just kind of tear those off and dip them in salsa and just skip the greasy chips. That works out really well.
Right. There are options. I don't know if you can see on the side. I think you both can. There are typing questions.
I see someone says oil makes me sick now. Well, oil makes me sick now too. I can't eat it. I just get sick.
Yeah, you can really tell when food has oil, and they tell you that it doesn't.
Yeah.
It really makes you feel sick.
It's hard though, because places will lie. You'll ask them if they have oil in their food, and they say, "Oh no, there's no oil," and you get it, and it looks like there's grease all over the plate. So.
If I had time, I'd go into that Chinese restaurant story we had at the Ala Moana a couple of weeks ago in Honolulu. Do you remember that? At the Ala Moana Hotel, the Chinese restaurant on the 3rd floor.
Oh, yeah.
We were in Honolulu 3 weeks ago.
Oh.
We walked in. We said, "Do you have anything vegetarian?" And there was a language problem. Believe me, there was a language problem. We ended up with white rice. That's it. We could get nothing. Dim sum, what do they call dim sums? Dim sums.
They were all filled with animals. They were all greasy.
You see it, and they came over and started putting them on our table like we ordered them. Excuse me, well, what do you have to order? And basically, we got a couple of plates of white rice because that was the only thing open at that time in our area. Anyways, with a little planning, you'll do okay.
Right. Italian restaurants are really not friendly.
No, it's really hard to eat out. And as you can see by the size of us in the past 10 years, we eat at home most of the time.
Yeah, and we eat real simple.
We eat really simple. We eat lots of beans and rice and bread. And
sweet potatoes. Sometimes potatoes. But Mary makes these unbelievable soups. But anyway, before we get to that kind of a transition, because us eating home, very simple, which we do, which is obvious, and eating out and guests and so on. We got a holiday coming up. Can you say a few words about what people should be thinking about if they're going to be the host of a Thanksgiving party?
Well, for years, ever since we lived in Hawaii, I always make a pumpkin, and that's what my stuffing goes into. And that's the centerpiece of my table It's beautiful. You bake it just like you would. It takes about an hour and a half to bake. And then you scoop out the stuffing, and some of the pumpkin comes with it. And then we have green beans and Brussels sprouts and mashed potatoes mashed with soy milk or almond milk. I make a creamy golden gravy to go with it. And so we don't feel like we're missing out on much.
You know, if people stop and think about Thanksgiving, Thanksgiving's the biggest food feast of the year. Yet it is also the healthiest meal that 99.9% of Americans eat. It's full of vegetables. It's got the lowest fat meat in it. It's got the most amount of starch of any meal. And yet Thanksgiving is supposed to be the biggest feast of the year. And as it turns out, after Thanksgiving, every meal every American has is a bigger feast than Thanksgiving. Higher in calories, higher in fat, higher in all kinds of horrible things that cause cancer and so on, and heart disease. And that kind of gets to the point of our whole mission, is to try and teach people that the basic food of a human being is starches, vegetables, and fruits. And yes, you can have special occasions or be in survival situations where you do add animal foods to your diet. I mean, that's always been done. I don't know of any population that's ever been vegan, except for people who choose to be vegan. People eat whatever they can get, and a rich food like a deer or a goat or a turkey or whatever they could get. It was something they had on a special occasion, maybe on Sunday. A little bit of chicken for the family, but the rest of the week it was all McDougall style. And there were other holidays during the year where you would take and you'd throw a pig in a pot of stew and slice up a few chickens and so on. But that's supposed to be rare occasions. And I have to say, in my years of being, quote, a vegan, I've never called myself a vegan, even though we are practicing vegans. I've always used a slogan that's somewhat gotten me in trouble, but I've used it to make a point. And that is, I tell people that I eat turkey every other Thanksgiving. And the reason I do that is to prove I'm not a vegan, so you don't call me names. And you don't put me in a box. Well, he acts like this because he's got some highfalutin religious principle. He's a vegan. I say, no, I'm not a vegan. I eat turkey every other Thanksgiving, a piece about this big. Now, whether or not that's true, you will never know. And which Thanksgiving I eat that piece of turkey on this year or next year, you will never know. You just need to understand my point, and that is that this is not a religion. This is a tool to get your health back. The problem with teaching a little bit of turkey, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, is most of my patients, 99% of them, can't do a little bit. They have to do green or red, yes or no. And so you start letting that turkey in the house, unless you have the kind of attitude we have about it. Once the turkey comes in the house, then the next indiscretion that got you in trouble will be back in the house too. You just give yourself permission. So I made vegetarians very mad at me by saying I eat a piece of turkey every other Thanksgiving. I've probably given some people permission to go back to their bad habits by saying that. But I hope that for most people, what I've done is put into reality the tools that we're trying to give you. You regain your health, you prevent disease by eating a starch-based diet with fruits and vegetables. If you have a glass of wine once a year or twice a year or whatever, that's a non-issue. If you smoke a cigar a couple times a year, that's a non-issue. If you have a piece of turkey and you can do it once every other Thanksgiving, it's not a problem. But for an ex-smoker like me, if you tell me I could have a cigar or a couple of cigarettes every other day, it would be full-on tobacco addiction, normal level of intoxication. I mean, I can't do moderation.
Well, most of us cannot really do moderation. Mary, there's a question here about someone that is talking about egg beaters being no fat and no cholesterol, but it's still an animal product. So what do you use as an egg replacement?
I use a product called Energy Egg Replacer. It's used for leavening and binding. It doesn't make anything that looks like scrambled eggs, but it's really great for baking And like for pancakes and for muffins and for cakes, it holds things together and it lets them rise. But we don't recommend egg beaters because they're solid animal protein.
Yeah, it's just egg whites. And the egg white puts a horrible protein load on your kidneys and liver. It creates bone loss because of the acid and the protein in the egg whites. Causes kidney stones. Egg whites are essentially fiber-free. They're just egg protein, egg white. It doesn't make it good to throw away the yolk. You don't make a substantial improvement in this food. Where do they get energy?
Energy, most natural food stores will have it. I've been using it for over 40 years, so it's a really established product. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. They probably have a website. It's I don't even know how you spell it.
ENER/G.
Yeah, ENER.
I think I have it here. If I have it, I'll go look for it. But energy, yes.
Yes, but just a G. That's not the word energy. It's
Right.
G.
Right. Dr. McDougall or Mary, I don't know. There's a question here. Someone is asking, is ice water okay to drink? Does the temperature of the beverage matter?
I happen to have a glass of non-ice water here right now, but I usually have ice water. I hope it's okay. I think it's okay. There's a really, really rare exaggeration of eating ice that, people they say with psychological problems. They eat so much ice that they damage the lining of their stomach and they get into some sickness problems by eating ice to that extent. But there's people who eat ice all day long. I don't think it's an issue. As far as I know, it's not going to cause you to lose or gain weight, reverse your heart disease if you use ice or don't use ice.
Right. Mary, can you tell us a little bit about where people can find your recipes on the website and the recipe cards and all that is offered?
Well, we have a mobile app called Dr. McDougall's Mobile Cookbook, and that you can buy, and there are over 375 recipes on there with a favorites list, a shopping list, way to keep track of the things that you really like. We also, I like personally the website. If I'm looking for a specific recipe, I go to the website, and on the top left, the top right corner of the page, a home page is called Search, and I click on Search, and the little box comes up, and I type the name of the recipe in there, and it'll tell me which newsletter it was in, so it's easy for me to find. And if I don't remember the name of the recipe, then I just type in some of the ingredients that are in the recipe, and it'll give me some choices. And I find recipes that way the easiest. But I have to admit that we eat very simply, so I cook a lot of the same things over and over again. I mean, like split pea soup and white bean soup with kale and tomatoes, and we do a stir fry with corn and lima beans and cabbage and rice, and I do a mushroom and kale and potato dish that's like a stir fry. So we do a lot of things. Red lentil soup. So I make these things over and over again. I don't do a lot of new things.
Variety.
Yeah, we have our favorites, and they're easy to make, and they don't take a lot of time. And so I like to do just simple things.
Right. Look, I've actually have it here. So
that's the one I use.
It's ENER and then the letter G. Dr. McDougall, someone was asking about coconut, not coconut oil, but someone mentioned that that there is some confusion because on your website, on the list of foods that are not allowed, coconut is listed. Would you clarify this? Do you eat coconut?
You know, I don't know where that would be. I know in my early books, back when I wrote books in the late 70s, coconut was considered to be a no-no because it was all saturated fat. Back then, I weighed more heavily on not putting coconut in the food. I always have and still do warn against using coconut oil. As far as the coconut meat is concerned, the whole white meat, I don't think it's unhealthy. I'm sure it's fattening because it's 90% of the calories is fat, but I don't think that nature made a mistake and made it unhealthy. I likewise don't think nature made a mistake and put that meat in a very hard shell. You know, it's really hard to get at. So
we don't recommend coconut milk.
No, we don't recommend coconut milk, which is probably, I don't even know what coconut milk is made of. There's a whole section I did on coconut in 2006 in my newsletters, and you would find it by going to Hot Topics and the section on fats and oils. And you'll find an article about coconut oil, the new medical miracle, written in 2006. Here it is, almost 10 years later, and they're still giving you the same pitch how coconut oil is going to cure this problem, and coconut oil is going to cure that problem. It's just complete nonsense. The stories haven't even changed, nor has the scientific evidence shows that oil, pure oil, you know, like coconut oil, is toxic. The coconut itself, with the vitamins, minerals, and fibers and so on that go together to make this white coconut meat, it's just rich. It's not unhealthy. It's rich. So don't plan on losing a lot of weight if you put a lot of coconut in your food.
Right.
Kind of like the avocados, right?
Yeah, so it's like avocados and nuts and seeds.
Or nuts, right.
It's unhealthy. They're just very, very rich. I think they're nature's gift to people who are facing starvation. You can get nuts and save them and get a lot of energy out of a small volume. Same thing with coconuts. They get you ready for the winter, keep you going through the winter. It wasn't a mistake of nature to make these high-fat nuts that we call them, and seeds. It was they were designed for survival of other, in particular, animal species on the planet.
What about Dr. McDougall eating raw cocoa chocolate? Somebody saying it's high in fat, and what do you think about that?
Well, do you know of any good? Because I know once in a while you will look down that aisle of healthy chocolate candy bars. Are there any that are?
There are some good candy bars that are made from, you know, just raw cocoa and well, they do use some oil usually, but again they're high fat, and the problem is they come in this size package, and if you can only eat this much, can you see that?
Which, by the way, we can.
Yeah.
you know,
yeah.
Those kinds of things have become so unapart of our diet that on those occasions, rare occasions where Mary does buy a healthy chocolate bar, quote healthy, you know, a couple of pieces and that's enough. But I know some of you, it's the same thing we were talking about with other things that you're addicted to, attached to, is that when you allow permission, if you bring that candy bar or that case of candy bars in the house, you're going to eat them. So be careful, no matter how undangerous sounding the ingredients may appear. It's a candy bar. It's a candy bar.
Right. Yeah, it is.
And by the way, I got to tell you another side story. As long as I've had grandkids that have gone trick-or-treating, they've always known that Grandpa's favorite candy bar is a Babe Ruth. You guys know? Yeah. That Babe Ruth's been so long. So anyway, they found two tiny Babe Ruth bars.
Tiny.
And they're still sitting on the kitchen table, by the way, and that Halloween's been a few days. So that tells you how big a part of it. Even Babe Ruth's my favorite candy bar. It's kind of a game for the grandkids to go out and find Grandpa Babe Ruth.
That's funny. Mary, what kind of treats would you recommend for people that, you know, you want at some point in your day something sweet, and instead of going to get a candy bar or something bad, what could we have at hand that is more or less healthy and it's sweet?
Probably I would recommend dried fruits.
If you need the calories.
If you need the calories, yeah. If you don't need the calories, then
Fresh fruit would be better.
fresh fruit would be better. But we have a dehydrator, and so when our pear tree or nectarine tree comes in season, it all gets harvested at one time, and we can't eat it all. So we wait until they ripen, and then we slice them really thin and dehydrate them. And those kind of things, and bananas.
And tomatoes. Right now, have you done it yet? We still have fresh tomatoes from our gardens. And so the bean soup you did the last 2 nights, they had the fresh ones.
Had the fresh ones. But last week I did dried tomatoes.
I'm looking forward to the dried tomatoes and the stews.
You do have in your website and then on different books, I've seen recipes for cakes or.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, those are high calorie again, but you do have them, right?
Gustavo, wait a minute. How did you find those?
Well, you know, I am.
We're supposed to be looking through those parts of the book.
That's where my eye goes first.
There's recipe for brownies. There's recipes for chocolate pudding.
Yeah.
But there's supposed to be desserts and treats for, birthdays and parties, and not every single night.
You mean that's not the main course? Oh my gosh. Okay.
We do serve, as you know, because you've been to the program, we serve brownies one night, we serve chocolate pudding one night. But we make sure it doesn't come out until the rest of the meal has been adequately eaten. In other words, it comes out at the very end of the meal. And people maybe the first night when they get the first treat, they might be confused and kind of overdo it and whatever. But by the end of the program, they understand that these are desserts. These are things that you'd serve, like Mary said, at a birthday party or a special friend coming over. If you make the brownies, even though they're oil-free and fat-free, or the chocolate pudding, which is oil-free or fat-free, that's still a ton of sugar. That's still a ton of calories. That's not what you're supposed to be eating for your main course.
Yeah, no. I'm what you were saying earlier. I am the kind of person, I'm sure a lot of people on this call is the same. I have to go with nothing, or I can't go in the middle. So I don't have them. I've seen the recipes, but I don't know.
Well, you're that way with food. I've been that way with tobacco in my fortunately in a long time. But I do understand addiction, and you just have to decide that your health is at jeopardy, and you're going to make a definite decision not going to do that anymore. And a time may come for you. I don't know. I don't think a time will ever come for me that I can have one Marlboro cigarette. I don't think that'll ever happen.
Well, and you're not going to try.
Yeah, I'm not going to try. because I know what can happen. I know I'm such an addict.
Right.
And a lot of people listening are that way with food. You just got to make the decision. The experiences are just too powerful for you to just have a little bit. I didn't make the rules.
Can you tell us a little bit about bread? A lot of people, including me, also love bread. How can we make sure that the bread that we buy doesn't have eggs or other products that we don't want to put in our bodies? Or do we have to make it at home then?
No, there's lots of good bakeries out there. You just have to read the label carefully. Usually, if you can find a good artisan bakery, so I'm talking about the kind of bread that's sold in paper bags instead of plastic bags, they usually have just a few ingredients in them. But you can also make your bread at home. Panasonic makes a wonderful bread maker. And if you go on our website and do the search feature and put in Panasonic bread maker, it'll tell you exactly which one to get, because it adds the yeast at the proper time and your bread never fails. And so it's real easy to make homemade bread.
All right, very good. Still, Dr. McDougall, would you clarify to people that that's still a refined carbohydrate as opposed to, let's say, in a potato?
Well, a potato is not a refined carbohydrate. People mix up white potatoes. I want to get that straight right now. White potato is health food, period. Don't take this nonsense that if it's white, don't eat it. Well, if it's white, you wouldn't eat cauliflower. white bread. This whole discussion. As far as breads go, they are ground grains. You know, you don't make a grain healthier by beating it up with a pestle and mortar they use or bread maker. I mean, you change the grain. However, in some ways, you also improve the grain for qualities people have been looking for. Some of the whole grains are just too undigestible, like wheat berries. It's hard to get the calories out of them, or corn. You know, somebody asked me a couple of days ago, why is it corn? Why do you see the corn at the other end of the, my balls? And nothing must be getting digested. Well, it's not getting digested as well as if you would grind it. So throughout human history, people have known that you have to take grains and turn them into flours to make them digestible, to keep the village and the family going. Fortunately, that big of a change from whole grain, whole wheat berry, whole rice kernel to a flour, just the process of grinding it is still within the limits of healthy life sustainability. So you want to get a grain product that isn't too much refined, too much extracted, the ingredients. They don't change the basic grain that much, other than grinding the grain into a more digestible flour type form. And for most people, that's a good idea. Bread, in other words, bread is fine. There's a study in the Starch Solution book that's talked about. It's about feeding overweight men 12 slices of bread a day. They had to eat an extra 12 slices of bread a day. That was the only rule, and the average weight loss in 8 weeks was 14 pounds if it was white bread, highly refined bread. And it was 19 pounds if it was a more whole grain variety of bread. So overweight people will lose weight if they add more whole grain bread to their diet, or even white bread to their diet. It's because it replaces the other fatty, higher calorie foods that are in your diet. And I want to mention one other thing before we get off the eating out thing. And I mentioned it for two reasons. 3 reasons, probably half a dozen reasons, is one of the biggest challenges to eating out is going on vacation. And Mary and I started maybe 23 years ago. We started doing the McDougall adventure trips just because people would say to us, how do I go out on vacation and eat this way? And so our first trip was to Mexico on a big ship liner. And I don't know, we brought a couple hundred people there. Then we took some people to Alaska. We took about 250 people to Alaska, and our own chefs along. So we started running these McDougall adventure trips. And pretty soon we found out, I want to go on with this story, that big ship with 600 people we took to Alaska, we took 250 of the 600 places. So there were about 400 people who didn't eat McDougall style. And every night at that midnight buffet, we'd see plenty of our participants up there at the midnight buffet. And when the captain's night came along, then they served lobster. Half of our people ditched us. They ate the lobster. So we decided we wouldn't run any more adventure trips that gave them that much of a challenge to eating well. So ever since we've rented smaller ships, like we're taking a small ship to Alaska, that trip's completely filled out. Or like our trip to Hawaii, which is still open. We still have a few spots for the Hawaii trip, which will be to Kauai, January 30th. We have a separate dining room where our food is served completely separate from the other people's, and that's all that's available. Now, you can go to the other dining rooms and eat. I mean, this is not prison. But we don't put you in a situation where you have...
Most people don't.
Oh, no, very, very, very few people do. Sometimes when they bring a guest, an unwilling guest along on our adventure trips, they go to the steakhouse or whatever. No, almost everybody eats with us because the food's fantastic, and that's why they're there.
Make the food so.
Our food tastes far better than anything you get in the general restaurant, because Mary and I, particularly Mary, put so much effort into making sure the foods are good. But so anyway, one of the topic of this hour has been eating out, and I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you that we run McDougall Adventure Vacations just to help people with that problem. Instead of gaining an average of 10 pounds in 7 days on a cruise ship, that's what the statistics are. Average weight gain is 10 pounds in 7 days. On our trips, rarely do we have anybody say that they gained a pound. And most people go back, even with all the food that they're served in buffet style, many, many courses. with desserts too, by the way. Most come back and they report that they lost 3-4 pounds in that 7 days. So anyway, we run these McDougall adventure trips. The one to Hawaii is still open. The one to Alaska is closed, sold out. You can find out about that on the website. And we'd love to have you come along. That's the other thing.
Oh, yes. It's coming up soon. Tell us the dates again.
January 30th.
January 30th through February 6th.
Yeah, it's on Kauai.
Right, and it's listed on the website as well.
It's on the website. Mary and I just got back from there about 8 days ago, checking out the food. We showed some pictures. Oh, it must have been 2 weeks.
Right.
Yeah, I'm glad I remembered because we certainly like to have somebody come along, have some fun with us.
Yeah, someone signed up just this morning.
Really? Okay.
Well, good. All right. Well, I am still planning to go. I have to take care of a few details, but I hope to be with you.
Your room is still waiting.
Okay, very good.
Well,
thank you. Tell us, we have to finish in a couple of minutes. If you have any other words of advice before we quit today, and thank everybody for being here.
No, I think we had a good show today. It was a nice conversation. I do believe that Mary's presence has kind of softened me and calmed me down a little bit, and added an extra bonus to the show. So I want you to encourage Gustavo. I want you to encourage her to join us to be part of the show more often.
I will do it more often, but I will not do it every time.
Yeah.
I guess this is yours and my gig.
So we'd love to have you here, Mary. And I want to say personally that this is a great honor that I have every week to spend a few minutes with Dr. McDougall, Mary McDougall, and do these webinars. Thank you for letting me do this. I really appreciate it.
Well, yes, that's great. We appreciate that, Gustavo. And I'm not going to go on about how you're the man.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. And we will see you next week. Dr. McDougall will do his regular webinar on Thursday. And I don't know if there's anything else we need to add before we quit.
We have a program. That's a private program. We have a program starting with a big company.
Yes, so our next program.
Our next program is in December. The next one that's open to the public is in December. And then, then we have the Hawaii trip coming up to Kauai, and we've had the advanced study weekend, which you were at last time. That was amazing, wasn't it?
Oh, that was incredible. I highly recommend that people attend the advanced study weekend. Incredible. It changed my life one more time.
Yeah, that weekend's still available if people want to purchase it. The whole entire weekend is on the website. I suppose there are a couple other things that I failed to mention that people should know about and spread the news about. Is we have 2 courses, educational courses that apply to lay people, but are also designed for professionals like dietitians and physicians. There's a CME course that gives CME credit for physicians. It's a dietary therapy course that tells you about how I treat patients with the science behind it. And then there's also a START certification course where you get a certification. In fact, you have your certification I've seen in the background at times, which gives you, I think, an important bit of credibility to have our certification that you know about the START solution. So there are 2 great classes that has CEU credits, the START certification course. The diet therapy course has CEU and CME credits, so you can get some professional credits that way and sit home online and learn something worthwhile instead of what the next drug company is trying to sell your doctor. Come on, I'm getting carried away. We've got to go.
Okay, we've got to stop for today.
Gustavo, thank you very much. Audience, thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.